Welcome back. This is video 3 of the 3-part video training series on building your $1 million report of findings system. Now, you may not want $1 million practice, that's fine. I'm telling you right now, you want $1 million report of findings. And I will show you exactly how to do that. This will be the first time I've ever launched or released any of this. But this is why I'm doing this 3-part training series, to help you implement. For some of you, you're like, hey, this is going to validate what I'm already doing. For some of you, you're going to take this information and hit the ground running and work with it and already put it into play. And then there's going to be a large group of you who say, I need help with this. I would love to see exactly how, Dr. Dan, how you've done your reports, how you have broken them down, how you strategize everything you say, how you take topic by topic, how you take the 4 stories and how you implement them, how you overcome the challenges of insurance and cold Facebook ad leads, and how you do. That's what the system's all about. But this particular video, this 3rd part, I promise you, I'll tell you exactly why people make decisions, why your prospects say yes or say no, because there's a reason why. And here's what I want to tell you. But before I get into this, I can't emphasize this enough. There's people just like you, because I was just like you. An introvert that had no business being in business, had no business speaking in front of people because I was scared of my own shadow. And here, within a few short years, learned how to not just actually build a big practice and collect a lot of money and help a lot of people, but then to become myself. And that was the key, right? 3 years into practice, become me, and to make this thing sustainable long term. So check this out, people just like you who we've been able to help.
Fast forward to today. So how did we do? What were the results, right? And the results were amazing. We closed very, very well in our location. 95%, which is awesome. Plugging in with what Dan has helped me kind of mold is, we had our 2nd week open in our newest brick and mortar. And this person, brand new, into weight management, has a great story. And she did $14,000 cash in her 2nd week of being open. So, that's a testament. It's given me hope. Now I'm excited. My goal is open in 10. I'm gonna have 10 of these throughout the U.S. And then from there, we're going to scale even much larger. But like I said, I feel confident with it now, knowing that I actually have a solution now, and I don't have to be there. I can actually go on a vacation. My wife and I just had our 10-year anniversary, and guess what? I took Friday off, right? So I didn't go in, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. My practice ran itself. My other location ran itself. It's helping produce residuals. Because I had a good system. So thank you, Dan. I appreciate it, man.
All right, so the question becomes, how and why do people make decisions? Can you agree that if you learn this skill on how to persuade people, not convince them against their will, not coerce them, not sell them, if you can persuade them. Now, I love selling. I think it's what made the world go round. Everything that you've bought that's been good in your life, or bad for that matter, has been because somebody sold it. Like, we have these opportunities because the world goes round from people selling stuff. Now, I'm not here to beat that up. There's plenty of people that have, and that's not my axe to grind. Here's what I'll tell you, is that if you can persuade people, you can build whatever you want to build. Greg Burns, neuroscientist out of Emory University, said, you can have the greatest thing in the world. New and novel, nobody knows it, everybody needs it. But if you can't persuade enough people to get it, then you got nothing. And so that's what I want to make sure you know. People that are in practice doing 2, 3, 4, 10x more than you, it's not because they're better adjusters, and it's not because they're spending more time than you. And it's not because they're smarter than you either. Then most of them got worse grades than you in school. It's because they know something you don't. They know how to communicate. And so the question becomes, why do people make the decisions they do? Well, don't borrow my belief, or don't, take my word for it. I studied this guy, Daniel Kahneman. This is what they call the Bible psychology. And this actually changed. You'll hear a lot of people talk about this if you dive deep into the psychology of human decision-making and communication. Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow, this became the new Bible of communication. It was written in the year, it was first published in the year 2011. And this, I recommend it. It's a little bit tough to get through, but it's a fascinating book. You've probably heard of this one, Influence by Robert Cialdini, The Psychology of Persuasion. This is another one that proves the point. And this 3rd one, I'm referencing all these books because these are my 3 heavy hitters. The Persuasion Code, these are the guys that I trained with, actually, particularly Christoph Morin and Patrick Wenbazé. But this guy's a PhD. I studied with him, spent some time with him actually in all places of Wisconsin, how neuromarketing can help you persuade anyone, anywhere, anytime. And he just talks more of the neuro. My kind of geeky brain, I love the brain aspect of it. Here's why people make decisions. One thing and one thing only, because they feel like it. People decide to do what they do or not because they feel like it. I know that seems like a simplification, but it's not. What Kahneman concluded in all of his thesis work and all of his research is that it's crystal clear. People buy because they want to. Why does that matter? Because people buy on emotion. The part of the brain that drives that is this limbic center. It's not the cortex. It's not the rational, logic, deliberate language and processing center, which is kind of crazy because you can't logic somebody into care. Even though you think sometimes that you prove it to them, it's still their emotion that decides. That's why I always say people buy on emotion, justify with logic. It's 100% true. And so in order to get people to say yes and to pay you, you've got to reach that emotional center. How do you do that? That's the bigger question. Research shows that you can increase the value of your offer, your care plan, your ability to collect cash by 6,700% with one single story. Princeton University came out and showed that people remember your message 22 times more when it's covered with a story. It's measured with a hormone that's called oxytocin. Check this out.
I want to tell you a story about a little boy named Ben. Ben is 2.5 years old, and Ben has brain cancer. And Ben's really happy. He's happy because he's been through 2 rounds of chemo and radiation, and he feels good for once. He doesn't feel yucky, and his father's enjoying seeing Ben's happiness. But as the father tells the story of Ben and his cancer, the father's voice begins to break. And he says, it's very difficult to play with Ben because Ben thinks everything is wonderful, but I know something that Ben doesn't, that Ben's dying. And he talks about how difficult it is to play with Ben, knowing that in 3 or 6 months, Ben will be dead. And yet Ben is so happy, he's so beautiful. And so the father tries as hard as he can to enjoy Ben, to be joyful around Ben. But then he says in the middle of this short story that it's an amazing thing to know how little time one has left. And as he says that statement, he has merged himself with his son. It's as if the father himself is dying. So in my laboratory, we've studied this story extensively. And what we found is that 2 primary emotions were elicited. One is distress, and the other is empathy. At the same time, when we asked people what they felt after the story was over, we really couldn't get very clear answers. So we began doing other studies on this story. So we took blood before and after, and we found that the brain produced 2 interesting chemicals. One is called cortisol, which focuses our attention on something important. So cortisol correlated with our sense of distress. So the more distress you felt, the more cortisol you released, and the more you paid attention to that stimulus. The second chemical release is called oxytocin, which is associated with care and connection and empathy. And oxytocin was correlated with people's sense of empathy. And the more oxytocin they released, the more empathic they felt towards Ben and his father. Now, we did something different after this experiment. We gave individuals a chance to share money with a stranger in a lab. And indeed, those who produced both cortisol and oxytocin were more likely to donate money generously to a stranger they couldn't see in a lab.
I can watch that video over and over and over again because it just gives me the confidence and certainty of why what I've done works and why it will continue to work and why nothing else will even touch your ability to convert more people if you're not using the power of story. It's literally measurable. That trust hormone, that's why I wrote the book called The Trust Formula. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you, is that when you can take what you do and you put it into a wheelbarrow so you can repeat it over and over and over again, that's when you build a practice that is not only just sustainable, but that's when you build a practice that's fun. It creates the time and the financial freedom that I think, again, we could agree or I'd argue that you probably got into this for. And so that's what gives me so much excitement to, for the first time ever, offer my $1 million report of findings system. This is where I will show you and break down every aspect of not only what I've done, how I've done it, why I've done it, what's working now, the science behind it. Not that you need to know the science behind it, but some of you will. And every aspect that leaves no stone unturned to actually drive more revenue into your practice and to do it in a method that you can see me do it, you can watch me do it, you don't have to just listen to me, you can watch me, but then how I break it down. And so what I want to do here is I want to break down for you exactly what the system and program entails, and then the special offer that we have going on right now. Guys, I'm going to tell you and reemphasize what I've said earlier, is that unfortunately or fortunately, the people doing better than you, 2, 3, 4, 10x, maybe 20x, isn't because they're better than you, isn't because they're smarter than you, and it isn't because they're working harder. That should drive you to want to know, and more importantly, want to know to actually do better. And there is a level, you're going to have to gain a level of skill set, and I believe it starts with a strategy. And so that's what this program's all about. And so I want you to check out exactly what it consists of.